Hey everybody, how's it going? Here for another awesome Echo Means Business IGTV Live. I'll hang tight here for a little bit and give people a couple minutes to join on in before we get this thing going. But thanks so much for joining us tonight on a Monday night, as we're certainly all in the middle of the spring rush. So go ahead. For those of you that already hopped in here, I see we've got a whole bunch of you. Comment below. I'd love to see where you guys are joining us from tonight, and then tell me how your Monday's going. Hopefully everybody made some money and didn't start their Monday off twisted and upside down, which unfortunately happens to the best of us every once in a while. The spring rush can certainly do that. But well, thanks for joining us here tonight for a fun Echo Means Business IGTV Live. Give it another minute, let a few people join on in here, and then we'll get going with our fun guest here. We had a great time doing this the other week, and so we decided it just made a lot of sense to keep it going. I know years ago I did some of these over on my channel, Debt Free Landscaper. We did Mondays with Mike for a while, and that was great. It was actually just commitments I had that put it to an end, and didn't have enough time, but really enjoyed spending the time with everybody, and really excited to get an opportunity to do that again. So it looks like we'll be doing these Monday nights at 7 o'clock if you want to join us live here on Echo Means Business Instagram. And if not, there looks like there might be some opportunities for you to catch these after the fact. But why not join in on the fun? You know, this is a big discussion amongst our community here. Oh, wow. I see you guys got a whole bunch of you joined in here. This is just great. I see I got my buddy Alex Carey in here. Hope you've had a good day out there making that money. I got Austin from Ditch the Itch. It's always good to see you. We were just chatting a little while ago. Appreciate Austin trying to send some work my way. We might be a little too busy to help that person out, but ain't that just the way the cookie crumbles? Wow, we got the Jar Sisters joining from Illinois, and then Marin's Lawn Care from Tampa, Florida. That's great. I've spent a bunch of time down in Tampa, Florida on a project many years ago. Big mall down there, and have a couple friends still in the area. Wonderful place. In fact, I got a buddy of mine that's looking at getting into some real estate there. So we'll see how that works out. Maybe I ought to connect you guys, and you give them some tips, and at a minimum, or maybe even tell them the places to avoid. It's always good to know somebody who's on the inside. So that's market is crazy over here, he says. So, well, that's great. I know things were trying to cool off there for a minute, but crazy is still a good thing, at least while we're all in the spring rush. I know that's something we may need to kind of keep our eyes on, as the big powers that be talk about that may be a recession later this year, which kind of coincides when some of us start slowing down anyways. So it'll certainly be interesting to see if any of that plays out or none of that happens. I know my opinion is we're all along for the ride. So that is what it is. But well, give it another minute or two here, waiting on actually our guest to make it on in here. And if not, then you guys maybe just get to hear me rant if... because that does happen sometimes in the spring rush. You know, it's hard to be all the places at once. I know something that really helps me is using a good scheduling software, and maybe if you guys could go ahead, recommend some of those in the chat for maybe some of our new friends that are joining us here, and you know, that way they know what other people are using. We all see what's advertised, but I know it always interests me to see what are my peers actually using and what are they enjoying and finding makes them money. So go ahead, comment below. I see we got Mark Thomas in here. You guys always got to keep an eye on what he's doing. He's great resource for our community. Always says real good insight on like new tools that are coming out or ways to do things correct and safe. I always value Mark's friendship. He's certainly an Echo User Advisory Group alumni member, and I think he's probably one of the most tenured ones. So there's something certainly to be said about that. I see, I've got my friend Edison in the chat, and he mentions he uses Jobber. So that's great. I also use Jobber. I've used them for a long, long time, going off on almost 10 years now, and always happy to see other people using Jobber. I remember when it was just a handful of employees over there, and now they've got many an employee across multiple offices, and it's wonderful when you see people in the industry that you've kind of come up with grow and be successful. And that's probably why many of you are joining us either live or listening later, is because these are the things that you desire for. So I see we've got our guest here. Chat here and see if we get this to load properly, because technology is its own thing, right? Hey, there we go.
Why is it sideways? What the hell?
Yeah, ain't that the
No, that's not it.
No. Well, if you guys can't tell, we got our buddy Paul.
Yeah, but I'm sideways. I don't know about this here. How do I change that?
Oh man, that is a great question. I don't know. Oh, there you are. You are.
Go.
Hey.
All right.
I was gonna say, this is what happens when they put the couple old guys out here. We might be good at landscape knowledge, but you could get on here and watch us technology fail, right?
Yeah, right. This is not my strength right here. All right, that's not too bad.
No, you're doing great. Somebody wrote Paul for president, so.
Oh yeah, okay. Me and Donald Trump.
Hey, I'd argue none of those guys are good at technology anything, right?
Absolutely.
So.
Well, I'm not on Twitter, so you don't have to worry about me there.
I was gonna say, I think if you could manage to not get banned on platforms, you're already a leg up, right?
Yeah, that'd be the good thing, right?
Perfect. Well, we've got Paul here joining us, and we thought we'd have a fun chat about scaling and not scaling businesses. But before we dive into that, Paul, for people who unfortunately don't know who you are, why don't you just take a minute and introduce yourself?
Paul Camara. I own a small landscaping company up here in Rhode Island. I've never done anything else other than landscaping my whole life. I'm a third-generation landscaper. My grandfather had a business. My father had a business, and it's all I've ever done, all I ever know. So that's the long and short of it.
Cool. And then obviously, for those that don't know me, I'm Michael, the owner of Bedell Property Management, and we've been around not nearly as long as Paul, but I do come from people that farmed the land, and so a lot of generations are doing that, but I'm the first one that's turned it into something more aesthetic, and as my degree says, ornamental horticulture, which makes
They go side by side. They definitely go side by side. Absolutely.
It's all soil. It's all soil science. If you've got healthy soil, you can have healthy crops. You can have healthy plants. And no matter whether you're doing either or, in my opinion, and from what I've learned, if you got that going for you, it's pretty easy to look good.
Right. It's absolutely
cool. Well, we could certainly turn this conversation towards soils, but we'll have to have you back on for another riveting chat about plant health care. Right. Tonight, we want to talk about scaling or not scaling your business, which, is almost maybe a little taboo topic. Obviously, there's a lot of momentum to grow and scale, and a lot of even advertising towards that. And it's almost like the carrot that's dangled in front of any entrepreneur. Imagine how big you could be and how great you could be. And I know at one point,
when I didn't have any gray hair. That was certainly something that sounded very, very enticing to me. Versus now, it's pretty covered up with a hat. It's pretty great. So maybe some things have changed in both regards. But anyway, I figure I'll let Paul hop in here and just kind of share the different size of companies that you've been a part of, because I know things have fluctuated for you over the years, and just kind of give some people some context before we dive in and start giving opinions here about whether whether we think it's good or not. I think we should start off and at least give people an idea of kind of where we've been and then where we're at today.
Yeah. So growing up, I grew up in the late 70s, early 80s. My father had a landscaping, masonry, irrigation, snow plowing, excavation. We did it all. Maintenance, construction. We had our hands in almost everything. And if the customer wanted us to clean their basements, we cleaned their basements too. So we did it all.
Wow.
During the heavy months, especially during fall cleanup, stuff like that, on a Saturday, we could have more than 20 guys working for us. We had multiple things going on. My father was a stonemason and a brick mason. So was my grandfather, but that wasn't my times. My father, I consider that. And we used to do spec houses. We used to do all the chimneys, fireplaces, and we'd brick face the houses as well. Back in the 80s, that was a big thing, doing the brick facing the houses.
Sure.
We used to do the stone fireplaces, walls, everything stone, walkways on these houses. We had a couple of contractors we were working for, and we were always busy. Matter of fact, I tell a funny story. When I was 12, we had a lot of Portuguese guys working for us. None of them knew how to drive a stick shift standard, so I used to have to be in the developments. I used to have to bring the materials back and forth because I knew how to drive the standard transmission at 12 and bring the materials back and forth. So that's how long kind of I've been in, working with this. And there was no, Easter vacation or spring vacation. If there was a vacation, we were working during the summertime and things like that.
And how many guys do you think were part of the operation? Like when you were doing that work in the 80s and you were even 12 years old and driving the stick shift, about size-wise?
12 years old,
fluctuated.
That was like the heaviest time of my father's business was from the mid 80s to right around 1990 when the economy really had a hard time. My father had a hard time after that. But we had, like I said, during the heavy months, a lot, 15, 20 guys. During the normal year, my father had probably 2 3-man crew masons. We had a maintenance 3-man maintenance crew, so 7, 8, 9, and a couple guys just doing the regular stuff back and forth, plus me and my brother whenever we were around. So, 10, 12, something like that normally.
Okay.
During those times, it was busy. It was a lot of work, a lot of guys, a lot of headaches. My father had a lot of headaches, a ton of headaches. But he was an immigrant. He came to America at 19 years old. Okay. So you got to give him props on that, and he grew a really, really good business. So that was the biggest we were, and then after 1991, 1990, we had a credit union collapse here in Rhode Island, and it messed everything up in our local economy. Plus, the economy wasn't that great in 1990 to begin with. So we scaled down to, I remember, that's when I was about 18, 17. I graduated. We had about 5 guys at that point, 4 or 5 guys. That was the smallest my father ever was. So.
Yeah, that change in the economy will do that, won't it?
Absolutely. Especially if we were dealing with a lot with builders at the time, and that's the first thing that gets hit is if you're working with contractors, their cash flow is going to change because people aren't buying houses, the loans aren't readily available like they should be, things like that.
Yeah. Well, a lot of that big construction industry, those loans just get rolled over all the time, and it's like a musical chairs game. And when that changes, that all of a sudden everything can change almost overnight. And I'm glad you brought that up, and that's kind of why I wanted to stop, even though it's not like the main topic of tonight, because we've seen some banks collapse here recently when we're recording
Absolutely.
this. It's April of 2023, and, you know, they're not in Rhode Island yet, as far as I know.
No,
There hasn't
not,
been
not
any
yet.
and same, I'm in Michigan, not any yet, but I know New York and California. There's been some other spots, and I think it was Jamie Dimon from Chase Bank even said last week he doesn't think this whole thing is over yet. So I think that's maybe something, you know, just to kind of everyone maybe take a little note on.
Yeah.
That, you know, it's not a hypothetical. Paul's lived it. This cyclically happens,
Right.
and it's starting to happen again. And so if that's something that your business is tied into, then you just need to be aware of the potential risks that you're inheriting that may not have been as present just 6 weeks ago or 6 months ago.
And you know, I know we don't want to, you know, beat this dead horse too much, but at the time, 88, 87, 88, my father bought brand new trucks. He bought a property. He built a house, a big house, and it was way too much for what we downsized to. So my father suffered a lot for that. And I'm not going to say that that's what's ruled my life, but it's made me very cautious in life and what I do, how I do it, when I do it. It's given me somewhat of a perspective on loans. And I mean, you're the king, debt-free landscaper, of course. And you know, learning from family members and seeing what they've gone through really helps.
Yeah. But somebody says in the chat here that New York is busier than ever.
Yeah.
So that's either a great sign or you know, the term sometimes thrown out as blow off top before the
Here too.
chaos hits in.
Here
Yeah.
too. There's not enough contract. There's not enough workers to do the work that needs to get done.
Yep.
It's amazing. It's amazing what could be done right now if you know lack of labor, all the you know what everybody's talking about right now. But if that wasn't the problem, man, there's so much that could be done.
Yeah, you could keep that 15, 20 person crew from back in the day.
Oh yeah,
busy and then some.
Yeah,
now.
Yeah. If they had a great, you know, if you had a good experienced crew, I mean, the amount of work that I'm offered and what I could be doing if I was a little bit more ambitious when it came to that, it's crazy what's out there. But I'm always afraid of the the next thing dropping. So.
Yeah, well, then that's just it. It's a cyclical thing. It's never if. It's just when. It's just when.
Right.
It's
just when it's going to happen. It happened in 08, 07. It was a tough time. So yeah.
Yeah, and you know, some people can survive through, but you know, other people can't. And I mean, you know, you even mentioned surviving or not, you really witnessed, you know, the toll it took on your father, and it probably extended far just outside the business profit loss and balance sheet. It was an emotional thing that he brought home.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, a lot of emotional problems come with that too. Yeah, within the family, with health, with everything. Yeah, it really beats you up.
Yeah, I see we got Pablo from Black Sheep Lawn in here, and he says you learn a lot from the elders. And exactly.
Wow.
Le Coupe Royale says learn from others' mistakes. And and then Delia Equipment says, I guess it depends on the pockets. Greater New York City, Westchester, always busy. Oh yeah, absolutely. But there's some high-end real estate that's sitting empty in Manhattan right now, and you know, so and it's wild. Across the street is completely you know, sold out at a premium, and then it's just it all goes to how the landlord is leveraged, or you know, because all these big projects, everyone's got to use all this debt, and that's just the way it is.
Well, the pandemic really messed work up. I mean, didn't mess it up. It really changed work.
Sure, it did.
New York's buildings are empty because people figured out to work from home. Things are changing, and you kind of have to adapt with those changes as much as you can. It's just being an old guy, it's hard to make those changes.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And it's where I think, the older we get, we'd rather almost be a little gun shy and miss the crazy opportunity than get burned when we knew better.
Yeah.
Because we saw this call. We know it inevitably will happen, whether it's tomorrow or 10 years from now.
Right. Josh is asking about the labor market from 80s and 90s. My father used to go to a Portuguese, the many Portuguese citizens clubs around our area, go in there and bring a guy home to work. That was the way you'd find workers back then. Not like today, totally different. And even the guys that were kind of heavy drinkers or, problematic, they worked hard. They wouldn't not come to work. I don't remember my father ever having a problem with people not coming to work. So that's something that I used to know and I have known, and it's one of the hardest things that I've had to adapt to. So
it's wild. People 30, 40 years ago could have vices and still show up to work.
Absolutely.
And, be productive. Now people are just a hot mess, right?
They didn't. This is a funny thing. If they didn't drink, you would know because they weren't as hard a worker. So it was funny. And, back in the 80s, you could actually get away with having alcohol on the job. In the work, the employee, the customers would give out beers and everything like that, and it was ubiquitous back then. Now it's everybody knows it's a no-go. So, but back then it was different times, different world. I've seen things change pretty cool, a lot. So,
well, shout out to our friend Footprint Gardens. Thanks for joining us in here. It's always nice to have
from Australia.
A legend in the house. Yeah,
absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining. Thanks for
right.
joining.
Daniel's saying it's hard to expect your work ethic from others. Yes, it is, but it's funny. I've been so lucky that the work ethic of a couple of the guys that I've worked with has actually pushed mine up. So it can go both ways, and you're absolutely right. But it does work both ways.
I totally agree. You want to be around people that inspire you to be better.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, if you're constantly the best player on the field, if
right.
you will, it's hard to achieve to be more.
Right.
That's why a lot of guys can't see it, but I'm actually wearing a Plymouth Whalers t-shirt in honor of Game 7, Flint Firebird Saginaw Spirit. Gotta support the excellence that I've been around in my life, and even though the Plymouth Whalers aren't around anymore, there's a lot of NHL players that still list Plymouth Whalers alumni.
Really?
Because because it's like a badge of honor. Like if you played for that organization, it speaks to how you were brought up and the type of coaching you had when you were very impressionable. And so, what a lot of Plymouth Whalers alumni still all over the NHL now. And
not to interrupt you, Mike, but it did because I live near Hartford, Connecticut, and
sure.
I believe that the Hartford team is the Hartford Whalers. Is that correct?
Yeah.
I don't follow sports, so excuse my ignorance on it, but I can hear it in my ear. Hartford Whalers. I don't know if they're the hockey team, the baseball team, or the basketball team. So you might have to help me with that.
Yeah, well, I could take you down the rabbit hole for a second, and then we'll dive back into our regularly scheduled program. So the Hartford Whalers are now the Carolina Hurricanes, but they very recently changed ownership. But for a long time, they had Detroit native owner Peter Karmanos, who owned the Hartford Whalers and then also owned a junior hockey team. He originally owned the Windsor Spitfires and then went on to merge off and start another team, and they were the CompuWare ambassadors for a year or two, and named after his business mogul because he was the owner of the CompuWare company in the 90s and 80s. And so they were the CompuWare ambassadors. And then they moved to actually the Joe Louis Arena where the Red Wings played, and played as the Detroit Junior Red Wings for a handful of years. And that's where I got to meet and fall in love with the team. Nice. My dad's boss had Red Wings season tickets, and if you got Red Wings season tickets, they gave you junior Red Wings season tickets. Yep. And he had no interest in the junior hockey, but he knew my dad had a young kid, me, who was real interested, and we got to go to all the games, and they were a championship-level team back then. So it was real great hockey, and then they ended up moving to Plymouth a handful of years later when Peter Carmanos had a little falling out with the Ilitch family who owns the Red Wings, and they didn't really want them playing in the arena anymore. Part of that because Peter was actually looking at moving the team to Detroit, not Carolina, the Hartford team, that is, the NHL team. Yeah. And so they had to go to Carolina, but the junior Red Wings still got the boot, and they played as the Plymouth Whalers until 2014, 2015, I believe. And then they sold to I believe it's a watertight door manufacturer mogul from like Sweden or Finland or something. He's quite a character of a guy, but he's owned the team, and he moved them to Flint, which is like 40 minutes up the road. And so, yes, the Whalers name is exactly tied to the Hartford organization.
That's so cool. And you have that knowledge right there, too. That's pretty impressive, all of that. Boy.
I'm I like what I like. I'm sure my family's very, embarrassed listening to all this. Oh, my gosh.
Awesome.
Who cares? In fact, it's funny. They used to have a advertisement. Back in the day, none of these arenas had nets and stuff, and pucks are going out of play all the time. You had to keep your heads up. Not like now where they've really, they made it so
They're looking at their phones.
Exactly. And so they used to have a lot of souvenir pucks that would go out into the audience. And whenever one would happen, you would they stop play, and the PA announcer would say, and that souvenir puck's brought to you by Zuber Buick, your best Buick buy. And the whole audience would go, who cares? And the announcer guy would go, Zuber cares. And the whole audience would go, so what? So there's an inside family joke that when something happens that just totally doesn't matter, it's a Zuber Buick moment because who cares?
It's like the Sweet Caroline thing up at Fenway Park when we go. They do that 7th inning or 8th inning Sweet Caroline singing, and everybody does. I forget how it goes, but when we go to the games, it's fun. But
so good.
That's what it is. Yeah. Like I said, I could talk about muscle cars with you for a long time, but sports is not my thing.
Yeah, well, that's like the pinnacle of my hockey knowledge right there. Is the fact that I just went to a lot of Ontario Hockey League games, and the whole point of us bringing this up is just it's junior A hockey. Half of that league is going to go play some level of professional hockey somewhere, and then the ones that don't are still going to go play at the collegiate level afterwards, and go do something else excellent with their life. So it's part of what I enjoyed is it's not just good hockey, but it's people who are doing something with themselves, who like a lot of these young men literally at 14, 15 go move across the country and go live with a host family for months at a time so that they can try and pursue their dream. And I always found that very inspiring. The people I'd have to do that to do landscaping, so that people would be willing to take that risk, miss out on school experiences and friends that they grew up with to go pursue excellence. I think that speaks a lot about someone.
Sure. I'm going to answer a question from, I'm going to spell.
Please do.
Delia Equipment. I think that's how it is. Yeah, Delia. It's a Haro FST. It's a the bike I ran when I was a kid. I was into BMX freestyle. That isn't the exact bike, but that is the frame exactly of the one I had when I was a kid. I actually have a Haro FSD that I've tried riding again every once in a while. I do get in my garage and to try to ride and try to do some stuff. Then I do get a little afraid when that happens. But...
Oh boy. Yeah, shout out to the Danbury Thrashers and Apex Horticulture. Absolutely. What league are they in? Comment down below. I'd love to see that. Oh, look at that. What year is that from, Paul?
This is from 1986.
There you go.
1986.
Cool.
So, yeah, that was a fun time in my life.
Oh, wow.
So that was the bike.
Wow. See, this is the stuff for people listening later. This is exactly why you want to join us live, because you get to see all this cool stuff that you probably never seen here anywhere else.
Right.
A couple old goats going down memory lane here. But
are we supposed to talk about landscaping businesses today? I don't know. Okay?
Well, let's dive back into that. And you had mentioned you got up to like 15 or 20 guys, and I started my business in 2005, and between like I'd say then and 2012, 13, I got up to 12, 13 guys,
wow,
including myself and my younger brother, and that was the biggest it got. And then I scaled it to like half that size for a couple of years, and then like halved it again, and it was just myself and a couple people for a couple of years. And then the past 2 seasons, it's been just myself, and it's been wonderful.
You're running completely solo, aren't you? That's
yes.
No, you're not doing mowing either, though, right? Or are you still doing something?
Very little, very little. Just the couple sites that have me doing everything, and so I'm I'm set up there for a half day or a day, and it's just part of the work scope.
Sure. Yep. Yeah. When I started in 2000, when I bought my father's maintenance part of the business in 2000, he wanted to retire. So my brother took on the masonry side, and I took on the landscaping side. Mm-hmm. It was just Joe, who worked for me, still does work for me for knocking on 25 years. We've been working together. He worked for my father, and he decided that he wanted to work for me instead of work for my father. So he came on with me, and it was just me and him for a little while. 2006 was when everybody got in my ear and got in my mind and told me that I needed to get bigger and scale and get big and, do what everybody's supposed to do when they own a business, because that's really where it comes down to. You're supposed to grow, and you're supposed to get yourself out of the field. You're supposed to not work in the field. Anything that someone can do for you, they should be doing it for you. And I sucked that all in and tried it and didn't fail at it. That's not what happened. I just didn't like it. I didn't enjoy it. I'm not cut out to get complaints. I don't have that. I don't have the ability to take on complaints. And when you scale, unfortunately, no matter how hard you train your guys and do, train and you're going to get complaints, and it's just something I couldn't handle. I just could not handle the complaints. And so I had, in 2006, I brought on I had one of my guys work his way up to be a foreman. And he was like a friend, like a brother to me. It was, we figured we were going to do this together forever. And he took on the mowing part of it. We hired some more guys and brought that back on. And, man, it was a heartbreaker. Mid-May, he said, I'm leaving. I'm not doing this. I got a job doing something else. It's nothing. And I'm still friends with him. I still talk to him. It was a heartbreaker because everything went down the tubes. We couldn't get the work done. We couldn't find someone else to do it. We just couldn't do it. So we had to, go not do certain jobs. We had to walk away from things. And that day on, I just knew exactly what I wanted to do, and it was someone else wrote it earlier, and it's something that I've always lived by: stay small and keep it all. And that's what I did. It just didn't work for me. My wiring didn't work for it. So we decided to niche, and I have an artist mentality or a craftsman mentality, whatever you want to call it. That's what I have, and I enjoy the work. There's nothing that makes me happier than to be working alongside my guys, designing, installing, pruning, things like that. So I just did that. So that was the story, the beginning of everything. So
that's great. I'm glad that you shared that. There's so much knowledge in that. If people are listening to this later, or I encourage you to rewind and listen to all of that again, because there's a lot of truths in there that whether you decide to scale or not, you will experience.
yeah.
And it's like we've said here, it's not if, it's when. And I had a very similar experience. As part of why I went from a big group of guys down to like half as much, and then again went from like 5, 6, 7 people down to myself and just a couple. Was when it was like the 5 or 7 of us, it was like a brotherhood, and there were a couple people that have been around 5, 6 years and had like foreman type positions. And there's a local concrete company here that got real. It was right like 2015, 2016, and the market started booming, and they needed drivers, and what they were paying was like close to $40 an hour. These guys were making back then, $18, $19 an hour, which was a lot better than they would have made a lot of other places, and that's why they stayed. But it was not realistic for me to double their pay to match that, and in turn, I there was no beef. Like, I wish they would have maybe stayed till the end of the year, but at the same time, like we were talking about, whether it's guys who work for me or guys who played for the Plymouth Whalers, I love to see people improve themselves.
Absolutely.
Try and get to the next level, and why would you? I'd be mad. You're going to go make twice as much money.
Yeah.
Like, go do that. Now you can go buy a house and level up, save money. You can have the wedding you want, all these opportunities for these guys. And so it was great for them, but it sucked for me. And I was so lucky I got bailed out. A company that threw me a bunch of work when I was starting out, that we did a lot of subcontracting work for. They actually had a few too many people. We're going to let some people go. And I happened to run into the guy that ran the operation. I was like, oh man, I'm losing these guys. And it's like what Paul said, we're struggling to get stuff done.
Right.
And we only got 12 weeks left, but man, we're going to swing this on the skin of our teeth. And he goes, well, I'll tell you what, I could send these guys your way starting Monday if you're going to pay them X. And they showed up and they finished the season. And I was so thankful that happened. That was truly a blessing. But I felt like I failed the class, but got passed anyway, if you will. And it wasn't even a money thing. It was just we almost got bit hard. And what can I do to make sure this doesn't happen again? And at the end of the day, it was, I think I need to focus on my most profitable stuff and the stuff I enjoy doing. And I'm not as much of an artisan as Paul is, but I do enjoy doing that stuff as well. And, the stuff that gives me some ability to get to do that stuff. And so, I've just continued down that to now where I get to focus on even more of the stuff that I like doing, because it's just me. I don't have to worry about keeping anybody busy now. And so it's fun. I get to do the problem solving, and I get to help my friends find the pain points that are really setting them back in their business, and kind of be the guy that steps up and helps relieve the pressure on some certain situations, whether it's a troubled client or something not getting done or whatever, or doing all their plant healthcare work, making them look like a real winner. And So yeah, it's there's a lot of opportunity to do what you want to do, not what you are being told you have to do. And that's something I think Paul and I really want to get across, aside from hockey talk and otherwise, is that, you're going to get told that you could do all this stuff and you're going to have all these opportunities to do these things, but it doesn't mean that they're the right opportunities for you. And that ultimately, I ditched Paul's take on this, but you're probably better off slowing down and looking for what's the best, most profitable things to do rather than just trying to rip it from the frame and hope you're going to get there someday, because hope is not an investment strategy.
Right. I also want to make clear that I'm not anti-big business. I have a lot of friends. My cousin, these guys have big multi-million dollar companies. They'd be bored in my company, absolutely bored. They would, and they would probably wouldn't run it right. They probably would tank my business. Everybody, the thing that I would like to stress to most, and I'm not a you have to kind of person, not at all, but I believe everybody kind of has to know their own wiring in a way. Some people just need to know that they want to be big because it's just part of them. It's what's going to make them happy. It's not about money. Money is important, but sometimes the enjoyment of the business is in growing. And, I was so lucky to spend a day with Marty Grunder back in 2017. He came to our state association to do a talk, and I talked a lot with him. And he's like a $7 or $8 million a year company. It's unbelievable what he can do. He doesn't even have to be there anymore. The company is on autopilot. He's doing, grow events and different kinds of talks, and he's doing other things. I think that's great for him. But I wouldn't be able to do that. I wouldn't. That's just the point, and that's what I don't like when people say, if you're not growing, you're dying, or something along those lines, because it really scares people who have more of an artistic or a craftsman style, or just don't like to work like madmen, like until 8, 9 o'clock at night, that don't see their kids, don't see their wives. There is different ways of running businesses, and I'm a proponent for my side. Obviously, I like having a small company. I enjoy mine, but I am not anti-big business at all. Know your own wiring is what I say.
I totally concur with that, and I also, yeah. I love big businesses. Thankfully, the company that sponsors the show, Echo, is a very large business, but some of my biggest clients are publicly traded companies. And I think the part I'd like to share with everybody is they see value in my company at my size,
right,
and I see value in their company at their size. And right, they don't believe that I need to become their size, and I don't believe they need to become my size. Right. There's a place for all of us to make money, right, and there's a place for all of us to get in where you fit in. And that's where people, I think, get it mistaken, is they think that like the grass will be greener on the side, or if they get X number of accounts or X number of dollars in revenue, right, that it solves anything. And you're just chasing your tail.
Right. And the issue with social media is also, a highlight reel. And I know everybody says that, and it's a highlight reel. You can look for things for inspiration, and that's fine, but life that's not real life. Do what works for you. I'm not like I said earlier, I'm not a you have to kind of guy. You go online and these big social media guys are telling you what to do. They're actually telling you this is what you have to do. And when I see that, it gives me like the hairs in the back of my neck go up, and I feel bad for that one guy that really wants to do good work, and it pushes him in the wrong direction, and he fails or doesn't fail. And I think someone wrote earlier, everybody has the right to try, and they should try. They should try all different avenues throughout their venture, through but, as you're figuring things out, take heed in those things. Well, this doesn't work for me. That doesn't work for me. And learn from them, because you're stuck. You're not that you're stuck with a business your whole life, but you're married to something that you really want to work, and you want to be happy. And that's what I did back in '06 when I went through that time, and I was getting complaints, which I never got complaints. It wasn't the way we are. I mean, since that time in 2006, 2007, the only complaints I get is because I'm not there when they want me to be there. That's usually the problem that I get, where not that I'm going to be there on Monday and I don't show up on Monday. It's more like, I'm not going to be able to do that this year. What do you mean? There's just not enough time in the day. So that's where some clients might get a little upset with me. But since '07, I've never gotten a complaint for poor quality work, and I'm very proud of that.
You should be. It's a wonderful thing.
Right. I mean, for mistakes or not showing up when I said I was going to show up, not doing what I was going to do, anything like that, I'm very, very proud of that. I just wish I could make everybody happy and do everything everybody wants, but it's just a matter of when you can. I'm a reputation, professionalism, responsibility guy. That's 100% of what I am. If it doesn't show through on this, that's what I am. And if someone comes to me and says, I have a big pool job that needs to get done, and I don't have the time to do the pool job, I'm open. Say, I can't do it till the fall. There's no way. Where a lot of people will really kill themselves just to make the person happy and get that job, which a lot of people can. It's up to them, but I can't. So when I know that I'm going to do something, everything is seasonal, and that's when I'm going to plant the job. We just did this a couple of years ago. We have a huge pool job that we did, and it worked out. It just, they wanted it, when you have, that sounds like, what I'm about to say is going to sound like I'm tooting my own horn. I'm not trying to be arrogant. But when you have the trust of your customer, the admiration of your customer, and the respect of your customer, they'll wait for you. They'll say, all right, when you're ready, do the job. And if it's not something that's pressing, like, a septic system or something like that, obviously, but if they'll normally wait for you. And it's the way I've done my thing up until now. So I don't know. I think I went off on a tangent there a little bit, but
no, that's wonderful advice, and I'm also thankful to say that a majority of the time I'm in the same spot with the core accounts that are my sole responsibility at this point. It's somewhere between the wait if they have to, and it's there's a few sites where I most of the time get told that, like, I'm really the only one that cares. Like, they care, but they don't care. It's my job to get it done. I've kind of set the budget for things. I get it done when I think it's best, and like, they don't need to breathe down my neck. And when I occasionally bring stuff up, they're like, Mike, we don't care. This is why you've been hired. Like, this is why you've taken care of it for a decade plus. We don't have to think about it. We just make sure we send you money, and this is all on autopilot. Like, we could never find this anywhere else, so we're just going to do whatever we can to not mess this up and enjoy this ride, because nothing else in our life goes this easy. And so when you can develop that type of transaction, there's no more like, I'm trying to break even, I'm trying to make it, like, everyone wants everyone to make money. Right. Everyone wants the work to get done, and life just becomes a lot easier.
Right, it does. It's funny, you kind of made me think of a funny little story about that. My brother and I do work. He's a stonemason. And because we used to do irrigation, he's still licensed for irrigation. So on a lot of the clients we work for, he still maintains a sprinkler system. So one of the properties that I used to mow, and we still do work on for now, it's a beautiful property. They had to put a swing set in for their young daughter that they had. And my brother was there adjusting the sprinklers around the spring set. I mean, this is not a swing set. This is like a building almost. It was huge. and he was doing the irrigation. They put it in place, and it was on top of the grass, and they had to adjust some sprinklers. And the homeowner said to my brother, "Paul's going to be real mad at me about this, isn't he?" My brother he called me up after. He goes, Mike was saying that you're going to be mad at him for putting the swing set in, and he was actually worried about it.
Yeah, and see, that's the world we live in.
It's Paul's Lord.
Yep. Yeah, I can relate to those type of things. Mike's gonna kill me. We put in the dog fence,
right.
But we thought of you. The mower can get in over here.
Right.
But,
Exactly.
We know you gotta charge us whatever. Just don't be mad. Mad? I don't, it's your yard. Do whatever you want.
Yeah, it's your house. What are you gonna do? You know what I mean? But yeah, it's that's the fun part of being small too. You form that relationship with customers a little differently than when you're big. And we have an auto museum around here, and we have, I don't know if you know, but around here we have Newport, and they have the Newport mansions, and there is, I mean, it's just and Jay Leno has a house over there, and he belongs to this museum. And one of my customers is on the board there, and he found out that I had cars, so he's trying to push me to join this club, which is part of the museum. So I joined, and I have another customer that is wealthy, to say the least. He had one of the Audi A8s, the Iron Man kind of Audi. He's got a Ferrari now. I mean, he's got a whole fleet of different cars. And I saw him at the local food place, and I said, "You got to join the Audrey." He joined because I've joined, and now he's calling. He says, "When are you gonna? When's the first thing? I want to make sure we're going together. I'll follow you up there." I'm like, "You're not following my car with your Ferrari." But you become friends in a way with them, and they're cool. They want you to make money, and they take you on almost as a child, or as a nephew, or and they want you to make money. They actually tell you how this is what you have to do, or investment. Paul, you should do this. It's great to have that kind of a relationship, and then I wouldn't have that relationship if I wasn't on their property, to be able to take the work from them that they don't even sometimes know that they need to have done. And that's another thing about being small, is that the work is under your feet, because if you have the relationship with the customer, and they have a part of their property that needs to get restored, you just need to say it, and they'll do it. It's a little different.
Absolutely. Or, there's been times where I've mentioned, hey, you guys got to get your gutters cleaned. And that's not something we even provide. Oh yeah, just go ahead and get to that. I'm like, no, we don't do that. I don't know anybody, but you got to do this. I'm noticing this, and I care about you and your property. And right. They're like, oh yeah, that's why
right.
That's why we have you here. And
right.
Then the next time you're there, hey, did you see we did it? We did those gutters, right. And we're proud to show you. And so you hit the nail on the head. You become family, and they share, whether it's investment or
right.
life advice, and
right.
Those type of opportunities are available to everyone,
right.
But you have to put yourselves in the right situation, and it sometimes is a lot harder to be in those situations when you're scaling, because you're going to end up taking yourself right. out of the picture inevitably. And now, you use Marty Grunder as an example, good guy, friend of the show, and he's he's going to end up getting those opportunities with the guys in the Grow Group or other right. things like that.
Right.
It's going to be a foreman or a VP at his company who's going to get those car show opportunities, right. because they're the ones interacting with the clients. But that was Marty's gig a long time ago.
But he also has even a different, that's the whole beauty of it. He has that relationship with certain clients, I'm sure, because now he's actually going golfing with those people, or he's having the cigar nights with those people, or he's going to cocktail parties with those people. So that really, the dichotomy is, it goes up and down, where a guy like Marty will get those friends a different way. You know what I mean?
Yes,
And
absolutely, absolutely. It's he's established that, and
right,
now it's trickling into other people in his company, and they're getting the opportunities, but it still trickles back up to him. So it's possible, but it's tough, because then also, as Paul mentioned, when you're bigger and then you get complaints, you're pissing people off. You're not going to get these opportunities,
absolutely.
and if anything, part of my scope of business now is a couple buddies of mine. I deal with their like long-time pain in the ass clients who they've scaled, and sometimes their clients don't have it, and they know that they can't send their guys in to go get it done. And so I get to be like, the finisher, like the final level boss, if you will.
Yeah.
Like, I go in and I clean up the situation and I schmooze it up with the client, and I make my friend look like a hero, and I set up the guys so they're all hooked up next time. And it goes from like, oh, so and so's getting too big and they didn't used to do it this way, to like, oh, no, they just got a different way of doing it. And they said, Michael, I like Michael. He's nice. He's taking care of this, And so, where there's a will, there's a way. But, sometimes, you can enjoy a different quality of life.
Yep.
and maybe dial down the stress,
Yep.
And the risk that you're ultimately taking, with money. I feel like that gets not really talked about. The little 4-letter word that people don't like to talk about. Risk is, when you're scaling your business, all you're doing is inheriting more and more and more risk. Absolutely. Unless you're able to position yourself extremely correctly as time goes on. It's the old adage: the bigger you are, the harder your fall, is absolutely true.
Right.
And
right.
By taking that risk, you might win, or you might just fall and burn harder. And
right. That's up to that person, though. That's up to that person. Some people like to gamble. I don't. I've never actually put $1 on the table before in my life. It's not me. So they like to gamble.
Right there with you.
Right. I mean, I always say about a good close family relative, I think sometimes it's the thrill of the chase to some people. Like, they want the job so much. They love the part of pricing it, of talking to the customer, of getting that relationship and getting it going. And then once they have it, they never even go back to that job again. They just send the crew there, they handle it, and they're on to the next one. It's like hunting to some people. So everybody's different, man. Everybody's different. And to throw out blanket advice out there to people, I just don't like it. I don't like it. I disagree with it, because you could be talking to one person and talk about me to somebody, and they're saying, why doesn't he grow? Why doesn't he get any bigger? He has the way, because I don't want to, and that's okay. I've tried. And then I'll look at someone,
right.
And then I'll look at someone else that's growing exponentially, and I'm saying, oh my God, here goes another one that's going to bite the dust. And they prove me wrong as well. So, because if anything that I've seen over the 30 plus years of doing this, people crash and burn really quick. It's, you see that brand new truck in April, and it's destroyed by June. And by the next year, they're out of business because they just can't handle it. That comes on you really quick. And if you don't have a good business mind and you don't have the right people around you, you're going to get hurt. You're going to get hurt, because this isn't, when you're talking about really scaling, growing, building a business, you have to have the right mindset, the right education, and the right people around you that are giving you good advice, because that scaling a business is a totally different animal, and you got to be careful and get the right people around you. That's the only thing. But if growing's in your blood, do it, learn it, and I just say take it a little slow. I think the people that grow really quick are the ones that burn the fastest. take it slow. I've always admired smart turtles and not dumb rabbits. So that's the kind of people I admire.
Great advice there, Paul. I totally agree with everything you said there. It's people got it in them. You definitely might as well try. But I've used the word investment on here numerous times because that's ultimately what this is. And it's whether it's any type of equities that someone might trade or buying real estate or whatever. Starting a business is an investment, and if it's small, it's not as big of an investment, and sometimes it still cash flows very, very well. But the bigger any investment class is in one's portfolio, it just holds more risk, and that's why most people that I've got to work for over the years that have lots and lots and lots of money, more than I could ever imagine having, they don't just have it all sitting in one spot in case everything blows up. They've figured out how to have different things going for not if, but when something goes wrong over here,
right.
They can go over here where things are going well, and they don't have to blow up their whole lifestyle or family or try and reinvent themselves because they know that, if you're lucky enough to survive in business and stay afloat for long enough, you get to survive through all the crazy stuff that happens. And it's like the success, there's an adage. Success, the rent is due every day on that. You can be successful, but it's not just something you work hard once and then you're successful now. You got to get out there and do it every day.
It's a marathon.
And,
it's a marathon.
And I right there with you, Paul. It's great to try, and it's even better to have mentors that will help guide you and care enough about you to feed you the hard truth, even if it's not what you want to hear.
I had the best. I have to say I had some awesome mentors. And I had anti-mentors, which is just as good. The people that you know very well, that you're friends with, but you're like, yeah, I don't want to do what he's doing.
Yes.
That's important too. And I am having a blast looking at a lot of the comments as we're talking here. And I feel bad not answering some of these questions and talking to some of the people. But there is some one question really rang in my ear, and it's what's the sweet spot for amount of people working? And I don't believe there is a sweet spot, but I can tell you where I failed, or not failed, where I don't like the word failed. I didn't fail because we're still fine. Where I kind of hit my speed bumps. Two crew business. Everybody gets stuck in a two crew business. 90% of them out there, if you see, they're a two crew business. I believe, my opinion, the two crew business is the worst business to be in because it requires you to be a crew leader and it requires your best guy to be a crew leader. That means everybody working with either you or the other guy is no good, or training. So when your crew leader has a problem, you have to leave your crew leader and go see. You have to leave your job, which is with a trainee kind of a person, leave him doing something he doesn't know how to do very well to go help the other crew. If you're going to go into a two crew business, you got to get yourself out of the field. That's, to me, I don't like have tos or you shoulds or any of those things. But I will say, two crew businesses, if you're not out of a two crew business within a year or two, it's going to be a hard business to be into. Either 3 to 4 guys or 10 guys, because that gets you to a point where you're hiring office staff. That gets you to a point where you're hiring salespeople. That's where you get to a point where you have good healthcare systems and everything to bring on the best guys you can. Those two crew small businesses are probably the hardest. And you're going to be working the longest hours. You're going to be making the least amount of money. And then when you bump into a 3 crew business too, it's even more difficult because now your money is coming out of overhead and not from production. So you're making less money at that point. The growing stages always grow. And as you grow up until a certain time, you're losing money every time you grow until you get to a point where you're really making a lot of money. So it's either small or big. That middle size, that's hard. That's a difficult side to be in.
I totally agree, and I know one of the things we talked before we maybe wanted to touch on was generally the profit margins that people might see as a smaller business versus trying to scale up. And I think you just touched on that there, where as you scale up, your money's not coming out of production now; it's coming out of overhead, and because there's so much a reinvestment that has to happen, and then B, you're constantly feeding the beast of all these workers and all the overhead that comes with it, and then payments on equipments and shops or whatever's going on that you're trying to have going on. Go ahead, Paul.
And your ability to be productive and to be able to lead the team on the job drops as well. So your production drops exponentially, usually, not always. You could find that unicorn of a guy that's just absolutely great and can push you forward, and that's great. I mean, I'm just talking in generalizations. Normally, you're your biggest flag waver. You're up there, the guy. And when you take yourself out of the field, you got to make sure that there are other guys that can fill that spot for you. And it takes a while. It's not easy.
Yeah, I know. Just from my own experience, I've gone from single-digit profit margins to if you were to roll back in like my salary and some of the fringe benefits I get and add that back into what the company makes. Last year it was 30-40%, somewhere in that range by the time we made it to the end of the year, including some equipment reinvestment that happened. And so someone touched on here earlier, stay small, keep it all. And I don't know about keeping it all, but you can keep a lot more, and it does lead to other opportunities for other investments. And whether it's, Paul's touched on cars and stuff that you can enjoy that still can be investments, or other things you can actually put money to work for you, and that could be a lot less risky because my money doesn't seem to get hung over and not show up or crash the truck or whatever. Just from my experience so far.
Right.
Someone tell me I'm wrong in the comments. I'd love to hear it on that one, because if your money's come back and messed up on you, tell me more.
I've been fairly, I don't want to say lucky, but fortunate with some real estate dealings. They were helpful. Even the property I live on now had commercial, a part of it that's commercial. I bought my next door property. I was able to have my garage on site. I built it myself with help of some close friends and contractors. So I don't have an overhead for a rental of a shop. The equipment that I have, anybody that follows me knows that everything I have is old. So I keep the payments low, and by not having to plow, we keep the trucks in pretty decent shape, and the equipment in good shape. So, that instead of that money going towards tax write-offs, I get to keep that money. So I've become, similar to what Mike is, where it's that debt-free style of running a business. That doesn't work for everybody. I mean, some people just, they need to buy something. You got to be in debt, and you should have some kind of debt, obviously, for credit purposes and things like that. I'm not saying debt-free, obviously, but what I'm saying is trying to live below your means when you're small is a smart thing to do. In my opinion, that's what I do. I live way below my means. My pickup is a 2016 that I drive around with, and it's a little Colorado. I don't put on airs with anybody. I don't care what anybody thinks about me. I really don't. It doesn't make a difference if someone's driving $100,000 pickup or not. I don't get impressed by things like that. So if that doesn't impress me, then I really don't care about other people being impressed by what I do. So I try to keep my money as much as I can. I don't gamble, and that's what allows me to stay small as well. Because if I wanted to spend a lot of money and be the big schmuckone all the time, I'd have to be a big guy, a big company, and have that money to play with. But since I don't, I got to live below my means. So there's different things that come into being small, and that's trying to be very tight with your money or a little frugal.
Yeah, well, and it's a little easier to keep track of the dollars, at least from my experience. When I was bigger, you still make the same effort, but there's moving parts, and more stuff breaks, and more. It just even though I tried to be diligent, and I've seen it with others, you could try, but and we've talked about it earlier. There's more risk, and
Absolutely.
Sometimes that risk doesn't show up, and everything's good, and then other times that risk really shows right up, and there goes all that money.
I just want to be real and show that there is downsides to the small thing, because you got to be out there working every day in the sweat and the heat and the cold, the wind, no matter what. It's I'm out there working every day. I've worked in the field since I was 18. Knocking on 50 in a month or so, a couple of months. So there's that too. You have to kind of keep yourself a little healthy, and when stuff goes bad, then things go bad. It's there. That's why I always say that it's not. There isn't one benchmark for everything, except for one thing, and that's that two-crew business. I can't stand the two-crew business. I just don't see that as being a good, aspiration.
Yeah, and I think another thing guys ought to consider is, whether it's a home project or growing your business, everything takes twice as long and costs twice as much money. And so, that often gets overlooked, when anybody's making any type of investment idea. We all think of like the meme stock thing a couple of years ago. Everyone thought they'd just buy some GameStop and AMC, and they go right to the moon.
That didn't go well.
Go buy Dogecoin and go right to the moon. And I know. Full disclosure, I made some money off of both of them, but a lot of people didn't, because they didn't know how to get in and get out.
So Dan just said we have two crews that follow each other. That's different. You still have the one person, and I think that's completely different. Tino, I got out of crew ASAP. Take it easy, buddy. Just go.
Yeah, let's tear through the questions here.
I like the questions. If anybody has any questions, let's throw some out there.
So I see Apex wrote the market value of the work doesn't normally allow for the maintenance of equipment, especially with mowing. What's your thought on that?
I can see where he's coming from. I have some friends in the industry that say the same thing. That doesn't hold true for me, because I'm always doing something on the equipment. So I spend my entire winter on equipment. Obviously things break during the year, and I have some good people that I work with. I have more equipment than I need. That's another thing. I have 3 trucks. I really only need 2. So if a truck goes down, I have a skid steer and a backhoe. I really only need 1. So just speaking for me, like I said, I understand what you're saying. That is true to a certain extent. I've witnessed that, but for me, I've kind of insulated myself from that a little bit. I don't want to say that, knock on wood, by having a little bit more than I need, I get to insulate myself from that. I don't know if you feel the same way about that, Mike. I know you got a little bit more newer equipment than me. So
but part of it is because I'm not as handy as you are, and I'm not able to. It's just we're all different, right? We all have our own talents,
Absolutely.
I think sometimes probably more than others, but you enjoy doing that versus
I do.
I don't get as much enjoyment from it, even whether I'm good at it or not good at it. I don't enjoy doing it. So in turn, I've had to position myself a little bit differently in terms of some stuff being newer. But what is very similar to you is having backups, and something that actually when I became smaller, focused on was that, when you're not trying to scale, when you're scaling, you're like stretching to get the next piece of equipment versus when you've got everything set up. You can do things to, and I probably say, we should make this like the Pee Wee Herman word of the day where everyone goes nuts and yells at their phone when I say risk. Like, for those of us that are old and remember that Pee Wee Herman show, that's just it. I can de-risk my business by having an extra mower, by having an extra truck, by having an extra trailer, and having access to equipment that may not even be mine if I needed to in a real pinch. And so that, I've never even had to go down that route, but it's offered to me all the time. A buddy of mine has over 100 trucks in his fleet, and he says pretty frequently, like, if you had ever needed something, like, you probably could just come get one for the day. And it's very nice to say it. I've never had to take him up on it. Hopefully I never will.
But it's good to have people like that you can count on. I mean, I had my vacuum off of my truck a couple of years ago, and I ended up having to need, and one of my closest friends let me borrow his vacuum truck. So yeah, no, I'm totally there. I just got a great compliment of, that I take pride in work, and I don't really know how to say his name correctly, but Delia equipment. Thank you very much. But the one thing, B26, that is my favorite thing that I own, is my little B26 backhoe. It doesn't do anything perfectly, but it can do everything I need it to do. Backhoes are a thing of the past, but I can take that to plants, load the trucks. I can do everything and not have to take 2 or 3 different pieces of equipment for a 1 or 2 day job. So, yep, I agree with you there. We got a lot of questions going.
Yeah. Here, I kind of scrolled back a little bit.
Backups for backup.
Friend of the show, Melanie, in here. Thanks for joining us. And then
Hello.
Brendan Lely says, "What do you do in the winter, Paul?"
What do I do in the winter? I wake up the same time and I go back in the house the same time, but I'm in this garage either working on office work or on equipment, or that's my time where I go to have coffee with friends and go to have lunch with buddies, and it's not a 10-hour day of working all day, but I work on my equipment, I watch a little YouTube, I go for lunch, and I really look forward to the winter time, especially come like October, November. Yep. I'm ready, and I'm ready to put the heat on in the garage and tell everybody to go home and leave me alone for a little while and get into the maintenance groove. I enjoy the maintenance part of I enjoy the winter doing that.
And you still get to do a little bit of snow plowing. I see you have that nice all-terrain vehicle that's got the plow on it. And you probably got nice heat in there, and it makes it fun, doesn't it?
It's got air conditioning too, that little guy. That's a great little. If anybody needs a UTV for work, the Kubota UTV 1100, that thing is phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. That's what we plow here with on my property, and that's the one piece of equipment that I use every day too, because that goes in my house garage, and that's what I get into in the morning to drive down to my garage.
Wow, there you go.
That's where I go. That's how I drive back up to the house too. So yeah, no, that's the one thing I use. That one thing I use every day. So yeah, it's great.
It's a very nice tool, and yeah, you're right. It's a UTV, not an ATV. Why did I call it that? Somebody else asked, how do you feel about P&L in the current market compared to years ago? What do you think they're asking there, and what do you think about that?
I don't know what they were asking. My P&L profit and loss through the year. The way my business is set up, let's see, what's the best way of saying this? I work on and this is going to be very controversial because everybody tells you not to do what I do. Most of the work I do is cost plus. So what that means, cost plus, is you pay me for my time and you buy the material that I sell you. Why I do that way, and I've never talked about this before, so here goes. I don't lose doing it this way. That's where organization comes into play. That's where, organizing comes into play. My customers completely trust me with how we do that. They just charge. They just charge for the time we're there. I know that it's small ball, but I like small ball. I don't like home run ball because home runs don't come around all the time. I like to make base hits every day, or to use an old, baseball analogy, and win games that way. That's what's worked for me. I do also on planting jobs and design work. I do those on the contract, on the designs. That's not what I'm talking about. But so profit and loss, if you keep raising your rates and keep your costs under wraps, it always works out because there's no loss there. So that's what I do.
You the man for sharing that, Paul. I'm so grateful for you for sharing that with everybody, because that is some of the secret sauce right there. It's how you don't lose, and it's exactly what you said. Home runs, who cares? Like, there's this whole movie called Moneyball, and it's about how, like, the whole world of sports has changed, where it's not just about home runs and breakaway passes and Hail Marys, and it's all about dirty goals and dirty touchdowns and gaining a yard or two or here, stealing a base when the time is right, just trying to get on base, let alone bomb it out of the park every day. And that is not only a secret sauce for business ownership, but from what I've learned from some of my mentors, for investing and putting your money to work for you. Where a lot of people get it wrong is they either look for big home runs or they think like way too grandiose.
Right.
Versus, I had someone say to me once, if you could get 0.25% on your money, like every day, let alone once a week, you would beat the S&P 500. Right. But most people aren't looking for that little, I just need a couple $100 every day, or $50 every day in investments, or, whatever it is for your size of business, whether it's, $500 is a winning day, or $1,000 or $2,000 or $10,000. Like, it is what's a small win to someone is a massive win to someone else. But when you go ahead, Paul.
I'm sorry, I wasn't trying to interrupt you. One of the things that was drilled into me by one of my great friends and mentors, and he was a small landscape architect, designer, that actually got me a lot of the people that I work for. He said, you got to make every hit count when you're small. You got to make every hit count, or you got to make every bullet count, or you got to make every shot count, whatever you want to use as your analogy. Every time you leave your house, or every time you leave your yard to go to work, you have to make money. There's no mistakes when you're small. So if there's no mistakes when you're small, you got to limit the risk, and that's what Mike's talking about. So if you're a small company, limiting the risk means, like for me, having every freaking piece of equipment I could possibly need during a day on that truck or on that thing. Having the trucks and equipment fueled the day before, having a true plan, having the plant, like Saturdays, I go get all my plants on a Saturday if I need to, and it's ready for when the crew's there. Making every hit count and keeping your clients so trustworthy in you, and putting you in the power position that they're afraid to lose you. If not, that sounds very arrogant, and if there's any of my customers on here that are listening, that's not an arrogant. There are customers that are on. It's what I'm striving for. I want you to trust everything that I do, so that you don't want to get rid of me. I don't give you a reason, or I don't give the customer a reason to want to get rid of me. So for that extra $5, everybody, yells about, oh, they left me for $5. The reason they left you for $5 is because you don't give them any reason that the other guy is going to be better, worse, or indifferent. It's just $5. So it's just a mo to them. That's the reason. But if you get to a point where when they're away and you see a leaky sprinkler that's going into their basement, this has happened to me. This is where the example comes from. And the water is actually going into their basement, and you call the irrigation guy and you get it done and you get it fixed before they even know about it. And then after it's done, you call them and tell them you did it. That's when they find a little bit of trust in you, because you can handle things. You're the guy. If they need something done in their house and they're not around and they don't have anybody else, they give you a call, you go run and do it, because that's relationship building. And when you're charging them on an hourly rate or cost plus, as I like to say, they're not afraid. But, doesn't work for everybody. And especially if you don't have great guys. If you don't have great guys, if you have all trainees, if you have, young 16-year-old guys and you're trying to charge $80, $90 per hour or more, it's not going to work. If they're always on their phone, or if they're, going for smokes or going for this, that, and the other thing, you're not making a relationship there. And that's where you're going to get a lot of people yelling and screaming at you. So, like I said earlier on, and this is why I was afraid to talk about cost plus. Cost plus doesn't work for everybody. It works for me. It does. But it doesn't work for everybody, because you're not contracted for everything. That's taking on risk. That's one of the biggest risks when you're doing cost plus. I'm not advocating for this. I'm just telling you what I do. When you go for cost plus, you're going to set yourself up for problems if you don't have the greatest guys and you're not around all the time. So just keep that in mind. I'm not advocating for it. It works for me. It doesn't have to work for everybody.
Yeah, no, it's an opportunity that it works very well for your setup, but you got to, everyone can find a totally unique and different way to be extremely profitable that wouldn't necessarily translate to anyone else, but it's how you make money. When you were talking there, it made me think of something a mentor told me once, where the greatest baseball players don't just get up there and just swing as hard as they can at every pitch. They're looking for their pitch, and they're totally fine striking out or getting walked, because if they didn't get their pitch, they weren't going to swing at it. But when they get their pitch, they are going to put that ball exactly where they want to put that ball. And that may not be out of the park. It may be very strategic where they're hitting that ball.
Absolutely.
But they're looking for their pitch, and then they're looking to execute on that specific thing. And it's very laser focused. When you find out what works for you, capitalize on it. Far too many guys, in my opinion, in this industry take a good thing and blow it up because they try and do something else when they had what was working right in front of them, but they're unable to just keep doing something because it's too simple or it's too easy, rather than just go to work every day and make money and do that, and then 20 years later you'll wake up and you're living a life you never thought you could achieve.
Yep, absolutely. Richie, you happy?
Nice to see Jeremiah from Growing Green on here, man. We'll have to get you on one of these. Thank you so much for joining us. I enjoy watching
his stuff. I really enjoy watching his stuff. And Scotty's on. Scotty's on from Landscapes from Acme. I like Scotty.
Good man there. Always great. I know he's going to be on here in a couple weeks. We're going to be having a fun chat. Yep. So
he's got the podcast going too. I've been listening to his podcast with Josh and JC. They're pretty fun. They're funny over there.
They're good guys, and I see we've got Tino on here. We're gonna have Tino and Ricky on in a few weeks out. So you guys are gonna have to keep tuning in on Mondays, because we're gonna have all sorts of fun guests, and occasionally it might just be me. Yeah, that's the plan. Monday nights.
Yep. Good.
7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and then
the Mike Bedell Echo Means Business show.
Exactly. Yeah, we've kicked around a couple different names or ideas. For right now, it's just kind of the relaunch of some stuff that Echo had done in the past. But one thing that we wanted to try to do a little differently, on all these going forward, is to give everybody an actionable step for the week. I know a lot of people, whether it's live stuff or in-person stuff or virtual stuff like this, people they feel inspired, they listen to a good chat, but then they don't know what to do at the end. And so, and I actually learned that from you guys, from going to events and talking to people, and that it's literally, I've heard this several times from people just like you, that you're all motivated, you just don't know what to do now. And so the actionable step I'd like to give everyone, and we'll see if Paul has anything to chime in on it, is to just consider the risks of scaling anything in your life, and whether it's truly appropriate right now in the moment in time in which you're in. And whether this will make you happy today, but will it make you happy 5 months from now? What about 5 years from now? And either way, you can be correct. There is no right answer, but the fastest way to achieve that answer is to find a mentor that can help you to avoid the landmines in your perceived plan. So I'd like to encourage everyone to just take a moment and maybe meditate on what they think their future should look like. And if you feel called to still continue in that direction, we encourage you to find some mentors, whether it's somebody here in the Echo User Advisory Group or someone in your local community. And just it could even be a great client. I know Paul and I have shared that we're lucky enough to be able to use some of our clients who are very successful individuals as sounding boards, and these people would love to pour into you and help you avoid any potential failures that you could come across. So there's everybody's actionable step from my end, is to just take a minute and stop and think, and then whether you're going to scale or not, it's totally up to you, but we want you to do what's best for you. Paul, do you have anything to add to that?
I just want to concur with you about mentors. I had the best. I had great ones. I had I could run through the names of people that you take little bits and pieces from all of them. You know what I mean? I had Joe that's been we've been working side by side for 25 years. Just an old school Portuguese, hardworking family guy that basically said I always had a bad habit. I think I said this maybe last time we were talking, of starting a job really well. And as I started seeing we were taking too long to finish it, I'd start cutting corners when I was young. And he always used to say, you finish the job the way you start the job. If you start the job full of detail, you got to finish the job full of detail. A lot of things like that. I mean, he honestly, I could say that Joe was like my Mr. Miyagi or my Yoda or my Mickey from Rocky. I mean, it's just, and he comes in 3 days a week now. He's turning 70. And, I don't know what my day is going to be without Joe. And I had a few other people that just, my business mentor. I had a marriage mentor, I had, so many different people that you could, and they were all older guys, old school guys. So that's how I became kind of who I am. I'm an old school kind of a guy that just, that's the way I ended up. But yeah, listen to Mike about the mentorship. That's good advice. And be careful. Like I said, there are anti-mentors too. There are people that you can look at and use them as cautionary tales. Those are the people that you can say, no, I don't want to do that. Like when there are guys, like my father had a little bit of a cautionary tale when he overextended himself back in 1990. And, that kind of ruined him. That kind of messed him up. He got maybe a little overconfident, maybe got a little hubris in him, and that messed him up. And you could see that happening. You could see it coming almost in a way. So, yeah, I had my father as a great mentor too. I mean, I'm not bagging my father. It was a mistake that he made. So yeah, listen to that. Keep an eye on your money. Keep a good close eye on your money. Try to live below your means no matter how big of a business that you have. Don't show off. Showing off doesn't impress anybody. I forget who the guy that said, we're all, worried about buying things to impress people that you spend money we don't have to impress people we don't like. Oh, I forget how the thing goes. Mike probably knows what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah. No, it's totally true. It makes me think of the end of there's this blogger Mark Manson who has these different books, and I think the one I'm thinking of has a mildly inappropriate title, so I'm probably not going to quote it here. But like the last chapter of the book, I was actually talking to a buddy of mine who's a professional musician. We were talking about how like it makes us like weep almost when we read it, because it literally it talks about how like there's a guy on the beach and he's viewing these beautiful girls, thinking about how one day maybe he can have a beautiful girlfriend like them. And then the beautiful girls are thinking about how their boyfriend pays no attention to them. And it goes on and on and on. And the whole point of it is that you realize that everyone's always caught up in what other people are thinking and perceiving of them. And at the end of the day, no one cares, and everyone's like lost in their head.
Absolutely.
With all this head trash, and that none of that really matters, especially over if God willing we live very good long lives. Those are the stuff that's virtually meaningless.
Right. My wife that cuts my hair, my wife's best friend who cuts my hair, every few weeks I spend some time with her while she's got a sweet talk. And she said her husband, who we're all close friends with, they were together one night. And this was really telling to me about something. She's on Facebook and Instagram and he's not. So they're watching TV together. And she went to, they were talking while she was on her phone or on her iPad, whatever it was. And she turns to him and says, we really should go to Jamaica. And he looks at her and says, is someone on your Facebook group in Jamaica? She goes, yeah. He says, turn your phone off, please. But I've that's been on my mind for as long as this was a few years. She told me that. That's so true, isn't it? I mean,
absolutely.
It's like, Mike Bedell bought that brand new dump truck. Maybe I need to buy that brand new dump truck too. You know what I mean? It's crazy. But it's such a sickness that we put ourselves through, and I'm not immune to it. I mean, we see it, but yeah, don't look at this as real life too much. There's a lot to discern from it. So that's all.
Yeah,
from an old guy that got into this later in life, you kind of have you get a little bit of the the radar for BS for a little while. So, sharpen that BS meter a little bit too in your mind, and that'll help you out a lot, especially if you're on social media. Don't take this stuff to heart because it's not your life, and most likely it's not theirs either, really.
It's just a highlight reel,
right.
And I could speak. For the most part, I post the stuff that's going to get the most likes, and it's not even the stuff that I always really want to post. But it's just a highlight reel. It's
right.
not what's really going on. For all sorts of reasons. I mean, we have to market ourselves, right? And so, it'd be an odd marketing tool to just show us constantly like screwing up and ruining things all the time. So of course everyone's going to show their highlight reel, but that's not what life is really like. And just because someone else is doing something, like we said earlier in this talk, Zuber Buick, who cares?
Who cares?
Like, That's right. Go do what you're gonna do. That's the most important thing. That's what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to go fulfill your destiny. And we're hopeful that we gave you guys some tips and tricks tonight that yeah, it gave you some insight or at least some maybe things to consider, good, bad, different, and otherwise, on
Yeah.
whether you'd like to scale or not scale, or then do what I did, which is scale up and then scale back down.
Right. Yeah, you can always go back. And I always, there's a few big companies that when I see them in the local area, they'll say, "Oh, you got it made. You got it the way this. You're doing it the right way." I'm like, You got like 15 crews. Oh, if I could be small again, I'd be small again. Oh, so like I said, don't fall in. Just do you. That's my motto. Find out what works for you. Find out what really gets you waking up in the morning to go to work. And if it's sales, love the sales. If it's numbers, love the numbers, man. Just go find it.
Well, that's a great jump off point, because next week we are going to be talking about this big fad of
Good for you there, Mike.
yeah. There you go. We're talking about this big fad of knowing your numbers, and how maybe that's a little bit overplayed, and what that really means, and maybe making it less of like a big catchphrase like game changer, and maybe giving people some X's and O's. And so if for those of you that at one point in time or now matching other people's prices is your pricing structure, then please join us next week.
Good idea.
I have so much to say on this.
Good idea. And I've had a blast reading all the comments and everything tonight. This was great. Thank everybody for coming in and watching what the hell or whatever else we're doing over here. I'm the biggest Forrest Gumper of Instagram. I don't know what I'm doing. I just put a picture up that I like, and that's it. I mean, some people put things up for the likes. I just put it up because I like the picture. So, or whatever it is. So, thank you everybody for doing this. This takes me out of my comfort level a lot because I don't like talking on these things too much. So I enjoyed it, and appreciate it. Appreciate you, Mike, too, and Echo Means Business for sponsoring these things and allowing us to do it. So thanks.
Very, very well said. Yes. Yeah. And hey, you're a natural at this, and I hope we can get you on in the future, because I really selfishly enjoy spending time with you, and it's really great to just hang out, whether it's in person or we get to do this virtually. And I'm learning just like everybody at home, so I can't thank you enough for joining us.
Everybody's learning here. This is a great place to be. So, and go check out the Echo Means Business website, right? I'm sorry. And a lot of good stuff going on over there, and go check out Bedell's space and do the Instagram thing.
Yeah. Real quick, where can everybody connect with you if they want more Paul in their life?
Well, it's Paul Camara with the little line underneath, that spacer thing between Paul and Camara. And I also have the SG Landscapes, which is just the thing for the business. Landscapes RI, I think is what it's called. That's it. And Facebook and stuff like that. But I don't know. That's that.
Perfect. Well, that's where they can connect with you. You guys can find me at Bedell Management or anything debt-free landscaper. And we look forward to hanging out with you guys next week. And thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us this week. Take care, be safe, be good to each other, and we'll see you next Monday at 7 p.m.
Thank you. We'll see you.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.